in the group. Hello, financial coaches. Hey, Jill, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Hey, thanks for just diving in with me on this and saying yes to my request that we go live and sharing this wealth of knowledge with all of the financial coaches. I appreciate it.
Of course. I know. I always want to go live with you and just talk. So it's fun.
I am going to hop into the group really quickly. So if you don't know, my name is Kelsa, and I am the founder and financial coach behind Fiscal Fitness Phoenix, a financial coaching company that we started 12 years ago. Jill is my lead financial coach and director of coaching. She mentors all of the coaches on the team at Fiscal Fitness. I am also the creator of the Financial Coach Academy, and Jill is a really big part of that as well, mentoring coaches throughout all of our offerings and trainings for financial coaches. We are streaming this training inside of our free Facebook group for financial coaches called Financial Coaches Unite. If you are joining us live, say hi. If you are catching the replay, say hi. If you are catching this replay on YouTube, drop us a note in the comments and let us know. But also make sure you join our cool group, Financial Coaches Unite. If you're not already in it, make sure you check the description, click on the link and ask to join. We do a ton of free trainings, lots of amazing value posts, guidance, advice on how to coach clients, how to make the most of your business. And also we do free meetups every single month with just financial coaches. So come join us. It is the last cool place on the internet, I think. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let me just the last cool group on Facebook. No. Okay, so let's see. Yep, we are live. So awesome. Oh, we've got lots of people joining us saying hi. Yeah. Great. Okay, here we go. So here's the scoop, you guys. Grab a pen and paper because you are going to want to take notes. I promise. I have no doubt that this video is going to be full of gems and truth bombs. So I want you prepared. We made the decision last year, at the end of last year, to do a price increase to really up level our program and the price that we charge to our clients. It was long overdue. And so we made a massive jump, right? This wasn't just like $100 increase, right? So it's a massive jump for a lot of our clients who have been with us for a very long time. And I asked Jill to join me on this live to share with you guys kind of how we came to that decision, the process we used when we made the decision, and then now how she's going about communicating this change to all of our clients, how what her process is like, step by step, best practices to get your mind right around that price increase, and how do you articulate the value of doing such a thing with your clients. And we are going to walk you through that entire process during this video. But Jill and I both have client sessions today, so we have got 30 minutes to do all of this, right, Jill?
That's what we're going to try. That's right.
So I'm trying to think back to the conversation that you and I had about this, back in November, I think it was, and why we wanted to do it, but also sort of what our hesitations were and just the typical, fears that we had. And I'm sure that coaches will be able to relate to what we went through. So I really just want to touch on that really quickly. What were some of the reasons that we thought it was time to raise the price? And if you can remember, what fears or hesitations did we grapple with? And I also just want to make sure you mentor a lot of financial coaches too, one-on-one through this type of stuff. And so let's not just talk about what we experience, but also some of the conversations you've had with other coaches and what they've experienced during this phase of their business.
Yeah. So, okay, first we'll touch on why we decided it was time to increase prices. And as Kelsa mentioned, it was long overdue. I think that we actually had talked about increasing our prices to this rate like 18 months before we actually did. And then we're like, yeah, we're going to get around to that. And then business gets really busy. And of course, we try to do the things that we encourage all of you to do. So we want to be leading by example. This is one way that we kind of failed because we had been talking about it for far too long and we didn't put a concrete date on our calendar, which is something that we really do try to recommend to any coaches that we're working with. Is like, choose a concrete date, make sure that it really happens. We kind of were a little bit wishy-washy around it and we're like, we're going to do it. We need to do it. We're in the middle of other projects. And so once they're done, we'll move on. So it was one of those decisions, I think, that got pushed to the back burner for a little bit. And then it got to the point where it was like, this has to happen at this point. Like there's really no other option. It is well overdue. It's time.
And I just want to acknowledge that like these are not comfortable conversations. This is not fun, right? And so it is easy to push these hard things, like the hard things that we know we should do, but it's also going to take a lot of courage or a lot of vulnerability and a lot of transparency and that sort of thing. And, we have a lot of worries about like, well, what will clients say? How will they react? And we'll get to all of that in just a second. But I think because of that, it is so easy when you're busy to push it to the back burner and let other urgent things,
right. Yeah.
go forward.
So I think that one of the things that had happened for us within the business is that we have put a lot of work into really refining how we work with clients, that we really do consider ourselves to be the elite of the elite. We are very high touch. We are very high follow through. We've got a plethora of exercises and expertise that we help our clients with. And over the years, it has gotten better and better and better. And the new clients that come on are actually coming on at a higher premium price point. And that has increased over the years. Whereas existing clients, we were kind of like, oh, they've been with us and we want to like reward their loyalty and sort of grandfather them in at an older, more original price point. And yes, not have those hard conversations about changing pricing because it feels much more comfortable to keep them at the rate that we're all happy and comfortable at and is known at. But as we've sort of changed and refined our niche, our ideal client who we're marketing to, all of that plays into your pricing, right? And that's something that I find with the coaches that I work with also is that they, usually when they come to me, they have an idea of who they really want to be talking to, or they're figuring out who they really want to be talking to, but maybe their messaging isn't super dialed in to attract that person yet, or they're getting too wide of a net that they're casting and they're talking to people that they're like, well, they would never pay the price that I really want to charge, but my ideal client would. I'm just not talking to enough of them or getting in front of enough of them, right? So the better you get that.
That was definitely, I would say, a big part of our shift was, refining not just the programs and the offerings and the way we deliver results and knowing that we are doing an amazing job there, but also who we are serving got refined, right? And I always say that we are the best financial coaches. And I'm not saying that to like put down other financial coaches. What I mean by that is I consider us the best for our ideal clients. Like I really do. And I want every coach to feel that way about their clients who they serve. Like I want every financial coach to say, I'm the best damn financial coach for my people. You know what I mean? And there's other coaches that I'm like, oh God, please go help this person because I don't know how. Right. But I know for our clients, like we really are the best. And so I feel like we should be charging according to that. Right. So that was a big part of like, wow, we are not commanding the types of results that we are helping people to achieve, the transformation we're getting, that sort of thing. So that was a big part of the transition.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that too with the coaches that I've worked with is that as they refine their ideal client, they're talking to the best people that are like the perfect fit for who they want to be serving, who they want to be working with. It's almost as if like, if your pricing is too low, that client is not fully engaged with what you do because they don't believe you're the best, or they don't really know what they're going to be getting out of it. There's definitely this transition that happens as you develop more expertise, as you're talking to the right people, positioning yourself in the way that you really want to be positioned to, get in front of your ideal client, that you can be charging a premium when you have that expertise and you're attracting the people that are fully committed. When clients are like really investing in themselves, they're showing up at a higher level to all of those coaching sessions. They're doing the work in between. It's like, if they're only paying $100 a month and they spend $100 a month on a lot of things and they're not all that committed to it. And so it really is a way of almost attracting the people that that are really ready to make a big transformation in their life. They're not just looking for a budgeting app or something. They really want to make a huge change in their life. And they're looking for someone that's going to guide them through that.
Yeah. And I posted in the description of this video, this quote, which says, my business and personal life won't improve without an investment. And I know I fully believe that to be true. Like, I know when I invest in a coach or a trainer or something, like, I show up very differently. The same is true for our clients. And we are seeing this we haven't even officially kicked off the Client Creator Challenge yet, but registration is open. This is not meant to be like a shameless plug by any means. It's just a perfect example that goes really well with this is, the Client Creator Challenge. We are kicking off on Friday. So people are already getting started who have registered already. And in order to participate in the challenge, you have to pay $997. And you would not believe already everyone's introducing themselves this week in the group and that kind of thing, getting ready for the challenge. They are all saying, I'm ready. I'm going to show up so differently. I'm going to step outside my comfort zone. I'm scared, but I'm also excited. Like, all of those things. And we're seeing that because they invested in themselves. So they're like, I'm doing this, right? And the same is true for all of our clients. So that's why the price that we charge is so important. And we simply felt like we weren't creating that feeling inside of our clients when they signed up, right? Like, they were signing up and it was great and our conversions were high and all of that, but we want them to feel that pull when they do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we made the decision to bump up the rates. And then our first step, while time consuming, was valuable and helpful. We made a list of all of our current clients, what they were currently paying, what the new rate was going to be for them, and why we felt the new program or the new price was better for them. So exactly what benefits they would gain because we were making this shift in what we were delivering. And now that step is not necessary. I've always done it that way anytime I've done a price change, which is why we do it on our team. Yet I consider it to be extremely helpful, but I'm curious, Jill, from your perspective, what impact did doing that have on you? And why do you think other coaches should do that step as well? Like, take the time to really get organized with all of those thoughts.
Yeah, I think that, to back up just a little bit, like Kelsa had mentioned, we write down all of the clients, where they're at, where their new price is going, and why it's valuable for them. But even before that, I think is clarifying, why is this change so good to begin with, right? Before even thinking of the individual client, is that if you're increasing your prices, it is not just increasing your prices because you want to make more money, right? So like, there really are impactful reasons. So one of them that we just talked about is how the client shows up and how committed they feel and the transformation that they are like full in, ready to do. But also, what are we bringing to the table because we're raising our prices also? Are we adding more service, or how are we demonstrating the value to our clients? And it doesn't have to be like all these, I'm going to give you like so many extra things or whatever, right? That's not what I'm saying. Like, don't go out and create a million different things.
Yeah.
But to know in a very grounded way, like, this is why the value is there. This is how I show up. I know personally that if I'm being paid at a premium rate, you better believe I want to serve my clients as a premium coach. Right. So I show up at a higher level. I hold myself to a higher standard. I want to be there to really help them create a huge transformation in their life. So getting very clear on that and feeling 100% confident that this is the price that you really own, right, in your business first. And what is it that you're going to do through your coaching to transform your client's life? And really, you can write it out, like all of the impacts that you see your clients have. So over the course of your coaching program, and then over the course of their life, right? If they make a change today that increases their business profit by $10,000 a month, what does that do for them for the next 5 years? Right? Like, how does that impact their big picture? So really,
and I just want to touch really quickly that it's so important as financial coaches that when we say what's the positive impact that it's having on you and the client and that sort of thing, that it's not just the financial impact. That is probably the easiest to quantify and the easiest to measure and the easiest to communicate. But more importantly, truly more importantly to the client, are the intangible benefits, how they're going to feel, what they're going to be able to do because of that, how their life is going to change, their whole perspective will change because of those benefits, right? So we really want to get clear on those. You can journal it out. You can talk it out with a fellow coach if you need to. I think that works best for Jill and I when we're doing this. You can also think about specific clients and what the benefits have been to them and how their life has changed as a result, and use that as an example, for these conversations as well.
Yeah. So I think that that's the first step, is like, it really is helping you to manage your own mindset around it, and to also take those benefits and apply it to the individual clients once you have them all listed out and say, this is the piece they're really going to benefit from. And this is what I want to be talking about with them, because I've seen in their journey already, like how this has helped them and how I know it's going to allow them to continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So having that list, I have a very robust client list. So having a list definitely helps, because it can feel really overwhelming just to like keep all the moving pieces organized, for one thing, like who have I talked to and when am I seeing them next and what is the outcome, and just all of those different things. The first step though really is like, figuring out where they're at, and then how will the price change like impact them personally? What will that mean for their pricing? What frequency might that mean they're transitioning to? So along with increasing prices, that does sometimes mean someone who's meeting with me monthly or every other month might be transitioning to a quarterly check-in, right? Like they are ready to go to a less frequent schedule. And that actually was part of the motivation of the price change, is that sometimes, especially our clients that have been with us for years and years and years, they're meeting with us out of like just being comfortable. They're kind of stuck in their comfort zone. It's a little bit of the default. They are showing up for accountability, but maybe not for like the actual big strategy and big picture thinking. And by giving them a little bit of a nudge to say, you are ready, you can go for 3 months without me. It's fine. You're going to be fine. You know these skills. And then when you come back, we can talk more strategy. We can talk more big picture goal setting. It's really actually very good for them. It's good for them to prove to themselves that they have learned these skills and that they're ready to take that next step to sort of like branch out, see if they can fly on their own for a little bit longer. It's actually been a really beautiful conversation with so many of my clients of like, you're right, I do think I'm ready for that. And this is actually really exciting for me to realize that I've been a little bit like, reliant on you and I don't need to be. Which is what we want.
It's an opportunity for growth for them and reflection. And we talk about this in the Financial Coach Academy. When determining your prices, there's the tangible impact or the direct impact of your price. And then there's always indirect impacts of your price. And how you price yourself will have subtle impacts on the client's behavior and how you feel and that sort of thing. And this is a really great example. So when we do the Financial Coach Mastermind, you have to commit for 6 months. And the reason we do that is because we found that when we were doing it month to month and we were letting people choose, just go month to month and they could cancel anytime they wanted, really it was doing a disservice to the coach. And the reason for that was because their thoughts in the month were around, should I stay? Should I keep going? Should I cancel? Those types of questions. And anytime somebody asks that question, they're not asking the question about how can they move the needle in their business. They're like getting distracted by the wrong thing, right? Because they have the option to think about that, right? Where if you remove that option, it's like, hey, I'm in this for 6 months. Let me just get as much value as I can for 6 months. Let me get as much feedback and coaching and mentorship and just, get dialed in. They are actually going to get so much more out of it because their mind is now focused. And the same is true for clients. So if you give them, when we did this change, we removed the every other month schedule, right? And it was because we found the clients who would settle in that, it was more of like just settling, right? And so we essentially removed that option really for the indirect benefit to the client, how it changes their behavior and the way they think about their money and that sort of thing. So super interesting.
Yeah. I feel like we're going on a lot of different tangents here, but
of course,
you guys, we had a list, which is where we were at. But so having a list to keep things organized, to like be able to document what sort of frequency you want to be moving them to think through that benefit and how you're going to be communicating it. And then also it's very helpful to see like, how will this impact the revenue? How will this impact my time and the amount of hours that I'm spending coaching? And for me, that was very, very grounding because I am very busy time-wise and needed to free up time. And so this change really is, I think, most helpful in that aspect of like, I'll have more mental energy. I'll be able to show up for clients and, do all the things that we want to be doing, and seeing it all laid out. And that big snapshot of it really does help tremendously.
Yeah. So just to give you guys some clarity on what she's saying. So this list that we made, it was the client name, the program that they were in, how much they were paying for that. And I think we broke it down monthly just so that we were comparing apples to apples and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it was how many coaching hours that was per month. So again, sometimes if they're meeting quarterly, that would be 0.33, right? So it's not a full hour because we're not meeting with them every single month, but some clients were still meeting with monthly. So we would have total coaching hours. Then we listed what the new program was going to be for them, or essentially what we thought would be best, right? So we know we're going to challenge some clients to maybe meet a little less frequently because they're ready for that anyway. They just needed that little nudge, right? What the new price was, and then the new monthly coaching hours. So that's what Jill is saying, is that she's able to compare not just revenue and money coming in, but also time, right? Like how much time am I freeing up by this challenge or by this change? Because sometimes we're making the change because we simply need to up level our prices. We've gotten better. We've gained experience. We're getting clients faster results. We've done some training ourselves. We've perfected sort of our coaching modalities, that sort of thing. Other times we need to do it because we need to free up our time, right? And we may lose some clients in the process, or we may transition them to a different schedule, but with the goal that we're going to free up our time, right? So then there's a column that's like, what did the client decide to do? And that's nice because then Jill can sort of say, like, I've talked with them, here's how they reacted. Our assistant then has access to that, so she can make the changes to their payment schedule, that sort of thing. Of course, if you're doing all of that yourself, you may want to jot down those notes, because I promise you, if you're having 10 of these conversations in 1 week or in a day, right, Jill, then it's so easy to forget like what that client said, and do not trust that you will remember. I promise it's easier just to write down some quick notes right after the meeting really quickly. So, okay. So I just pulled that up really quickly. I wanted to kind of dive into that in a little bit more detail. So anything else, Jill, about, have you had coaches that you mentor do that step or put the sort of time into doing that? And I'm curious what the thoughts are.
I don't think any of the coaches that I have worked with have changed. Well, maybe a little bit of some of their existing clients. Most of them have had fairly small client loads at the time that we've been working. So like 15 clients, maybe somewhere around there. And so it's more of like, who are they bringing in now and how are they increasing their prices on the front end? What is their new offering and program looking like? Which even that change alone can feel really scary, really intimidating. It feels from the, personally and from the coaches I've worked with, that it's like, oh gosh, like what if no one says yes, right? Like,
what if my business dries up overnight, right? Like we have those fears, yes, right?
Of course. There's always that fear of like, anytime there's a change that you're making, how will everyone react? And what if like all of my clients say no, and I go from, way too many clients to 0 clients? Like that's not the answer that you want either. So I think those are sort of the fears that raise up in your head. Very natural to be feeling that way. And so we'll kind of talk about a little bit of the process of like how to manage that and how to manage the conversation.
Yeah. So great point though, is that you can make a change in your prices and programs, but say it's for all new clients that you onboard. So you essentially like grandfather in clients who have been with you for a while. Even if their contract renews, you sort of keep it the same. We've done that many times. Or you can make a change and it's straight across the board for everybody. And that's really what we've done, is we are now going back and needing to revisit with clients these prices, and we're essentially making changes to it. And so I feel like this is much more challenging, right? So it's a good first step. If you want to make a change, do it for all new clients who are onboarding, and make sure you're really liking it, that it's working, that you're showing up the way you think you're going to show up because of that, like really allow yourself to test it for a few clients. But just be careful. Don't do what we did, which is like you make the change and then you sort of like tons of time goes by. And now you've got half of your client list still paying like a really old rate. If you're not careful, that didn't necessarily happen for us, but like, if you're not careful, it can, build a little bit of resentment. You can show up differently for some clients than others. And you don't want to get to that headspace for sure. That's not worth it. It's really better to, coach yourself through this, have those conversations, have the conversations with the client. So let's talk about that, Jill. So what's the process been like of having the conversations with clients? How has it been received so far? What did you do to take all those steps, both to get your mind right, to get them scheduled, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So part of making that list is I actually went through and like highlighted all of the people that I thought were likely to cancel coaching. And so I do think that was actually really helpful, is to think about like, which of these clients might be saying, no, I think that I'm done. I think I've graduated, or I think I'm not going to move forward. And that is a little bit of that mental management of just acknowledging that there are going to be some people who decide not to continue, and that's okay, and to be prepared and ready for it. So I think that was one step that I did initially, just to mentally be ready, wrapping my head around it. Like, because it is hard. You develop relationships with your clients and they become almost like, your friends or your family. You get so interwoven into their lives and their hopes and dreams and goals for themselves. And it's hard to think about not having them around anymore. So I think there is some of the acknowledgement of like, there could be some loss that you're feeling when that happens, and trying to be as mentally prepared as you can for that going into these conversations.
Well said. Yeah. And I know one of the things I did that. And then I also would highlight the clients who I felt like would sign up no matter what. It didn't matter what we charged. They're the clients who say things like, I'm with you forever. You could charge whatever and I would still pay you. Or they're the ones that sort of say things like, you could charge 3 times what you're charging and I would still pay you. Or like those types of comments, because you will get them, right? And I liked starting with those clients, because these conversations can take a little while to sort of like figure out exactly how you want to say them. And so the clients who love you and they're bought in no matter what, they're the easiest ones to sort of practice with, because they love you no matter what. They're not going to judge you. You can say something a little wrong and it's not that big of a deal. They probably don't even notice. Where the ones that are maybe you're like, oh, this could go either way, you really want to make sure you feel confident and like you've got the benefits dialed in for that person. And so that can just take a little while.
Yeah. And exactly what Kelsa's describing is how I've approached it also. So, those initial conversations were the people that I was like, it's likely to be one of the easier conversations, right? Like you kind of know their personality and how they likely will respond. Maybe it's the people that you're like, we're not going to be changing things all that much, or, they were naturally going to transition to a less frequent schedule. And so it's going to be super easy to present this one. So I think starting with some of those conversations that are probably going to be an easier one or going to be well received, like try to choose those as your very first like practice conversations, right? Even though they're real conversations, you guys, but it is you like getting sort of the kinks out of those first conversations right from the beginning, so that hopefully you can kind of get over a little bit of those initial nerves and that feeling of being flustered or worried about how it's going to go.
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge really quickly, and then we've got to keep moving, but Jill and I have done this a number of times now, right? Increased our prices, had these conversations. And I want to point out that even for us, we still feel all of these things we're describing, right? Like we still feel like we need to practice a couple of times with those lovely clients, the ones where the conversation is going to go easiest, to feel most confident. So if you are feeling those things, just know that it's normal, right? That doesn't mean you're bad at this or anything like that. It takes practice. And even then it's every time it is an emotional thing, right? Like, I think that's where vulnerability comes in. Jill was talking about how we love these clients, right? We hope that they stay. And also there will be some that leave. And it is a very emotional sort of journey, even if you're sort of like holding space, right? Like the coaching term. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that that is certainly part of the journey as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I feel like if you didn't go into it without some sense of like apprehension or nerves around it, like you wouldn't care. Right. And I hope that we all care.
Or perhaps you're still not charging enough.
That too.
It's still easy even enough, right? Like maybe that's a little bit of a sign that like, if this isn't a little bit of like then we probably need to go a little higher. Right. So, okay. So what's your process been like as you prepare yourself and then the conversation?
So I sent emails to clients, just letting them know we've got some changes coming for the new year. I would love to talk through those with them, and gave them a link to schedule a call with me. These are 15-minute phone calls. That's how it comes through like on the email. So the email I sent to them is very brief. You guys, you don't need to go into like a ton of details. It was just like, it's the new year. There's new things happening at Fiscal Fitness. I'm really excited to talk about them with you. And I'd love to set up a call to discuss it here, how we're going to be serving you this new year, and put the link. So people have been scheduling phone calls with me like bonkers, and it's been some really busy phone call days and client session days. I do think, before you get on these calls, you want to make sure you're in the right headspace. We talk about this in the academy too. When you're doing sales calls, get yourself hyped up, make sure you're feeling as good as you can. So, get dressed in something that you feel really good in, listen to some hype music beforehand, like make sure you're bringing that really strong energy.
You can say it.
That bad bitch energy, right? Like you want to be bringing that into the phone call of like, all right, I'm owning this. I like feel as good as I can. I'm going to really show up confidently to have this conversation. I know I'll turn on music and like dance around my office in between calls, just because it like helps me to move my body to like feel good energy.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to like go into the phone calls like that. I review the clients, in the morning who I'm going to be talking to. I write it down. I have a notebook like right next to my computer, and I'll write down their name. I'll write down where they're at right now, what the new, proposed coaching will be. And then as I'm having conversations and they agree, I write down really big next to it a yes and circle it, because I want to be able to see, like there's something about that, physical action, your eyes being able to see the words, the brain is like really absorbing all of that positive affirmation really about how this conversation went. So it makes it easier to be like, well, there was a yes, it's okay if there's a no. It kind of takes a little bit of that fear away actually. Mm-hmm. So then once you start seeing like a yes, 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 it's like, okay, well, I'm due for a no. Like you start to be like very ready for it to come through. Yeah.
That's so funny. Okay. So you write that down, and then anything else before you get on with a client? I think that's about it.
I think that's about it.
Coaching yourself, right? Like I can do this. This is going to be great. The client's going to say, yes, I am excited to, support this person. I'm excited to help them get more results in the new year. Like just really, I would say more client focused, right? On like what you're going to help them with, all those benefits, just keep that in the front of your mind.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So you're on with the client, and how does that conversation go? How do you kick things off?
So I kick things off all of these clients are people that really well, usually, right? So starting with a little bit of rapport building. How are you doing? Like, if they just got back from vacation, how is vacation? How is your family? If something was happening and they all just had COVID or whatever the case, right? So all of that. And then I've been telling them like, thank you so much for taking some time to schedule this call. Like I've been having conversations with all of my clients right now, and I really appreciate you for getting on my calendar. So again, I'm letting them know it's not just them, it's everyone. So I want to make sure that they understand that it's not like I'm singling you out or there's something going on. It truly is conversations across the board with everyone. So again, it's just part of that rapport building and sort of letting them know, set the stage for what the conversation is. Mm-hmm. And then I am just letting them know, like, I like to talk a little bit about what our mission is or what our vision is and like what we believe in and how we want to be serving our clients. And I do think it's good for them to be reminded of that, to know like, what is it that we as financial coaches want to be doing for them and for all of our clients, and what drives us within the business and our purpose. And so I, kind of have been telling them, simply because this was part of our like year-end planning and going into the new year, I say every year at the end of the year, we really sit down and talk about, what do we want to do as a business? What impact do we want to make? How do we want to best serve our clients? What's going to help get them the best results, and how we can show up to serve them? And, part of that conversation involves how, our programs are going to be structured for the year ahead. And so there are some changes coming, and that's what I want to talk about today. Mm-hmm. And so most of them are like, okay, great. Like they're, kind of excited about it. They're like, wow, we love that that's part of your mission and that you're focused on that and talking about it. I think it just does help them to know that we take this seriously, right? Like this is something we're very passionate about. And then I feel like I've been saying something like, the first thing I want to acknowledge, or I'm going to rip the Band-Aid right off and just sort of like get this elephant out of the room or whatever. I don't know what, some sort of wording like that, and say one of the changes does mean that our prices are increasing this year. And so I just want to acknowledge that right off the bat. Let's talk a little bit about what that will mean for you, because I want to make sure we're choosing the program and frequency and support that's best going to serve you. Right.
Yes. One thing to keep in mind, I think this is so important. So I just want to pause here for a second. Mm-hmm. If you don't just call that out, I feel like so many clients are so mentally distracted because they're sitting there thinking like, when's the ball going to drop? When is it going to like all of that? So they're not even able to focus on all of the benefits. And I guess just from a receiving end, like if somebody wanted to have that conversation with me, I want them to sort of treat me or communicate in such a way that like, I can handle this. Like I want transparency. I want directness. I don't want to feel as if they're like dancing around it. You know what I mean? And then I have to guess, or I have to be the one to ask.
Right. Like, what does this mean for me? Right. Like, yeah, it just feels yucky.
Yeah, it feels very yucky. That's a good word, because I can't really figure out why, but I just feel like it feels yucky. And so I think from our perspective, it's this direct conversation, and I feel like every part of our coaching session, it doesn't matter what stage the client is in, is around having great conversations built on trust, right? Yeah. Having really truthful, honest conversations, no matter what the conversation is about. And I feel like if you are able to do that during coaching sessions, we also need to do it when it comes to price and when it comes to the program sort of deliverables and all of that. So just keep that in mind, that you kind of want to have your communication style the same no matter what you're talking about, right? So like when it comes to price, don't just all of a sudden adopt this completely different type of personality.
I'm really serious now, right? I'm like salesperson. It's like, no, you're still their coach. And I do think that like, it is a conversation, right? It's not I'm convincing you to stay. I'm convincing you of what you need to do. I'm like grasping at you to like keep staying with me and pay whatever I demand. It really is a conversation around, let's talk about how coaching serves you best. Let's talk about how we're going to get the best results for you, what level of support you need right now, and what I see as being able to serve you best, but I want your thoughts on that also. Mm-hmm. So I'm really opening the door back to them around, this is, what it means from a price increase standpoint and how it will impact you directly, right? So I'm sharing that information with them, ripping that Band-Aid off right from the beginning. And then also talking to them about like, what I see from our coaching together is that this frequency, whatever that is, maybe it's the same frequency, maybe they're ready to transition to something else, but presenting that option to them and saying, I think that at this point, this is what I would see being the best fit for you, but I want your input too. How do you feel about that? Where do you feel you are with your coaching, and what level of support do you need? Right.
Yeah. I'm curious, Jill. So take a step back for a second after you've said that. Okay. And I just want to be honest that this involves a price increase, right? Yeah. So when you say that, what's the typical response that you get at that stage? And then also I want to hear what's the response, or where's the conversation go after you've said, here's what I'm thinking. Like, now tell me what you think.
Yeah. I think that almost across the board, either people are just like, okay, like they're kind of like waiting to kind of hear a little bit more about it, like there hasn't been any like, oh, like gasps or like people yelling at me or
you
like,
did that right as I took a drink.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I think that like a lot of people are like, oh gosh, I'm totally not surprised. Like, everything's going up right now. I'm not surprised to see that like other businesses have to do this. Also, there's been, I think for the most part, people are just like, okay, like, how does this impact me? Like, let's talk about it. I feel like our clients trust us to help them make so many financial decisions. This is simply one more. And I know it's really weird to be like, I'm going to help you figure out my pricing also. But so many of these, like once they've been working with you, they trust that they can figure out how to cover an expense for something they really value and want.
Totally. Yes. And I think that's, when we were saying earlier about the energy you bring to this, the communication style you bring to this, it almost treat it just like it's any other expense that the client's like, this thing that I have, whether it's my personal trainer or our pool person, anything like that. And it's like, hey, the price is going up. Help me, look at my budget for that. We absolutely help with those types of decisions. This is just the exact same thing. It's just, unfortunately, if we're not careful, we can bring a whole bunch of energy or sort of emotion into this. Right.
Yeah.
And so you want to just try and have the same sort of level head that you would have when you're coaching the client in general.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say there are some clients that, like I honestly was like, they're going to cancel because they haven't been showing up to coaching or they're not fully committed. I think that they're not really involved or engaged in it. And so, as you're having these conversations, if you've made your client list and you're looking and you're like, gosh, I don't really think that they're getting the value out of it anymore. Acknowledge that on the phone right away.
Yes.
Right. So that has definitely been part of the conversation of like, listen, I want us to have a conversation because I really want to make sure that you're getting value out of coaching right now. Like I'm seeing that you haven't made it to the last couple of sessions and I'm really wondering what's going on. I had a client yesterday that I was like, listen, I feel bad billing you every month and you're not showing up for your sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like, I want to call that out. Like, this is something that as your coach, like, I want to be coaching you, believe it or not, right? Like if I'm charging you, I want to be doing my job and coaching you. And if you're not showing up or if you're not following through on things, maybe this is not the right thing right now, and just really acknowledging that and having a really open and honest conversation with them. These clients, all of the ones that I've had those conversations with have all said, I absolutely value this and I need this and I'm willing to pay more for it. And so I think that there is something of like, it almost re-engages them a little bit of like, I'm even committing at a higher level. So now I need to be even more committed than I have been.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, totally true. Okay. So where are we at in the conversation? So you say, tell me what you're thinking. What happens from there?
Yeah. I mean, I think, so, I'm sharing with them any changes that you're making also. So if there are things that are going along at the same time, like I'm adding an email, like survey questionnaire at the end of each month. And I'm like, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. And I want you to know that that's something that's happening. So anything that you're changing within the program itself, make sure that you are sharing that. You don't need to be changing anything, quite frankly. So if you're not changing anything, just let them know that it's just a price change and it's time for that. And that's, happening across the board. But yeah, and then talking about the frequency and asking them like, how do you feel about this? What's going to help you? And some of them, if it's like one spouse and the other spouse is not on there, of course, I'm saying like, this is something maybe you want to talk to Sandy about, or whoever their spouse is. And some of them are like, no, it's totally fine. We want to continue. That's fine. I don't imagine anything changing. Or they might say like, yeah, we always talk about any decisions, but they kind of like, all of them have left me with some sort of like, this is likely what we're going to do. And I'm going to get back to you the end of this week or something like that. In most cases, they've been just deciding right on the call. They're like, yeah, of course we want to continue. We get value out of this. It's totally fine. And we'll just talk about like, all right, so the next time I'll see you will be this date. We'll implement the new price change as of this billing cycle. And, that's, I mean, basically it, Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the nice thing is, you either free up your time or you are generating more revenue, right? You're able to command a higher price. Then the client shows up differently. You, the coach, shows up differently, right? So it is one of those things that the transition is often hard, like these conversations, the work involved, the time involved. But I think this is the process to make it go as smoothly as possible, as easy as possible, to have it be a conversation, a dialogue with the client, and not feel, yucky to us, right? Like this feels good to us. It feels good to the client. And then it's like, after that, you really start to see all the benefits of why you did it. And I think you can see those because if you've done the job on the front end, like we were talking about, of like, why are we making these changes? What's the impact going to be? Getting really organized with that. Then on the back end, you can actually recognize all of those benefits. You can start to see them, and it feels really worth it, even though it might feel like a lot of work in the process.
Yeah.
Anything else, Jill, that you want to share?
Yeah. Like one thought that I'm having is that if you are going to be changing prices and you're thinking, maybe you're hearing this for the first time and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally need to do that. And it's time for me. And I've been avoiding it, or whatever the case may be. As you're going through the process, I want you to also be aware of the client situation at the time that you're planning to have that conversation with them. So there's definitely a very fine balance of having a conversation like this when they're in the middle of a crisis, for example,
Yes.
and having some sensitivity to your client and holding space for them, and not maybe pushing this agenda at a time where it really is maybe not the best time to have the conversation, and waiting 2 weeks or 4 weeks is going to be much better for the client, better for you as the coach, deliver better outcomes overall. And also, so being able to say this is not the time to have this conversation, but don't use that as an excuse either, right? Yes. So all of our clients show up with problems probably most of the time. And so, so there is really, is it truly they're in crisis? This is a bad time to have this conversation, and I need to hold space and be sensitive to them and help them through this challenging period and then have the conversation. Or am I using the oh, they've got something going on and it's not the perfect time to have this conversation. I'm going to wait another 2 weeks, another 4 weeks, another 3 months, really being very aware of that mindset and perspective as you're going into it.
Yeah. So for example, Jill, you just had somebody, I think it was yesterday, that you decided to reschedule. What, can you remind me of the situation? Got bad news, health from a parent or something, right?
Her dog had surgery and was having a really bad reaction to the anesthesia. And she was freaking out about having to take the dog back to the emergency room. So,
right. In that moment. Yeah, exactly.
We're not going to have this conversation right now. We'll reschedule. It's not a big deal. This doesn't have to happen today. Let's talk when you have time just to sit and have a conversation. She was in the backyard and running around and watching the dog. It's you don't want to be having a conversation like this in that moment. It wouldn't be received well.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Excellent point. Thank you.
Yeah.
So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Anything else, Jill, that you want to share? I just want to share, and you guys, Jill is so badass. And of the clients that she probably put in red or something that she thought would cancel, none have, I believe, zero have canceled. And I mean, I think clients are actually showing up differently as a result of this, right? So it is just the positive impact all around is amazing. So I want to encourage you, if you feel like you're there and it's scary, it is, and it's okay, right? So the positive impact on the back end can be so worthwhile. It's worth taking these steps. Jill is also coaching Jacqueline through all of this, because Jacqueline is communicating all of these things to her clients as well. And so Jill is coaching her through those, helping her navigate various scenarios, client situations, that kind of thing. And so I would love to hear from everybody. Let me know some of the takeaways that you gained from this training by sharing in the comments, and not only the takeaway, but what you plan to do about that takeaway. So it's one thing to learn and absorb some good information. It's another thing to take action on that. And you can say, I'm going to take action in 6 months, right? Like maybe that's when you want to earmark or put on your calendar that you're going to do a price change or a price increase. That's totally fine. It doesn't have to be something you do next week, but please make sure you're sharing the takeaway and what you plan to do about it. As you've probably heard, for the first time ever, we are accepting applications for a private mentorship program for financial coaches who are looking to cross the $100,000 mark and beyond in their businesses. The Elite Financial Coach program is designed to help you develop the skills needed to take your coaching and your business to the next level, and to not only command higher prices, but to do so because the results you're getting your clients are top notch. The Elite Financial Coach program includes private mentorship by Jill for an entire year, as well as life-changing in-person retreat and events with other financial coaches in the Elite program. It's capped at just 10 coaches. So it'll be a very specific, intimate cohort of financial coaches that will support you and encourage you, give you guidance. You also receive help from every department on our team, whether that's sales and marketing, program design, your systems, your automations. So people who are experts in the financial coaching space as well. There's also group business coaching calls and so much more. So if you are listening to this training and you are thinking, holy shit, I want to know how to do what Jill does, and with as much confidence and ease as she does, then the Elite program is probably for you. But you only have until this weekend to apply. So I'm going to link to the application in the description. If you're ready to become an Elite Financial Coach, make sure you apply quickly. If you are simply establishing your program and your prices for the very first time, and so maybe this video seems a little overwhelming to you, or maybe it just seems a little too advanced, that is totally okay. Check out the Financial Coach Academy, which is our program to help you create solid business and coaching foundations as a financial coach. And you can check out more at financialcoachacademy.com. I'm going to end really quickly with a quote. The swiftest way to triple your success is to double your investment in personal development. And that is by Robin Sharma. And I just want to highlight very quickly that that is true, not only for us, but also for our clients. So think about that when you are doing this price increase, that it may just be the quickest way to help them triple their success in finances as well by raising your prices. Jill, thanks for hopping on in between client sessions.
Absolutely.
Have great meetings. I'll talk to you later, girl.
Bye.
Okay, bye.